Of all the great mysteries we face in this life, none is more profound, more universal, or more deeply feared than the question of what happens when it ends. We often see death as a final wall, a terrifying void at the edge of existence. But what if it isn't a wall at all? What if it's a doorway? For over 2.500 years, the teachings of the Buddha have offered a radically different perspective, a view of death not as a final annihilation, but as a natural and necessary transition in a vast, continuous journey, much like the setting of the sun, which is not an end, but a promise of a new dawn. In this video, we will journey into the heart of the Buddhist understanding of death, the subtle flow of rebirth, and the profound law of karma that governs it all. This is not a journey into fear, but a journey into wisdom, a path to an understanding that can transform not only how we might one day die, but more importantly, how we choose to live, right here and right now. Part 1. The nature of death in Buddhism. In the Buddhist worldview, death is not seen as a final, terrifying end, but as a significant and natural moment of transition. It is a profound change, as natural as the setting of the sun to give way to the night, or the falling of a golden leaf in autumn to make room for new growth in the spring. The Buddha taught that life is a continuous, flowing river, not a single, fixed point. This deep understanding is rooted in three foundational teachings: impermanence, non-self, and the interconnected nature of all existence. Impermanence, or anicca, is one of the central pillars of Buddhist thought. The Buddha repeatedly reminded his disciples of this fundamental truth, saying, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Everything that arises, without exception, must eventually pass away. Our bodies, which grow and change daily, our possessions, which wear and decay, our relationships, which evolve and transform, and even our most persistent thoughts and feelings, all are subject to the ceaseless law of change. Death, when seen through this lens, is simply another, more profound, aspect of impermanence. It is a natural and integral part of the process of existence. Recognizing this truth on a deep level helps us to see that our suffering often arises from clinging to anything, whether it is life itself or the people and things we love, as if it were permanent. Is like trying to hold a river in our hands. By courageously accepting the truth of impermanence, we begin to prepare ourselves to face death, not with terror, but with understanding and a deep, abiding peace. The concept of non-self, or anatta, further deepens this understanding and offers a radical form of liberation. The Buddha taught that what we think of as our solid, continuous self is, upon closer inspection, a dynamic combination of ever-changing physical and mental elements, known as the five aggregates. There is no permanent, unchanging soul or essence residing within us, like a pilot in a machine. Death, then, does not mean the end of a permanent self, because such a self, in the way we imagine it, does not truly exist to begin with. As the Buddha famously said, just as a chariot is made up of its parts, the wheels, the axle, the frame, and does not exist as an independent entity separate from them. So too is the body and mind a collection of ever-changing elements. When we begin to grasp this profound truth, we can start to let go of the deep-seated fear of losing something that was never truly ours to begin with. In Buddhism, therefore, death is not viewed with dread or a sense of finality. Instead, it is seen as a moment of transition within samsara, the vast, beginningless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This great cycle is not random. It is propelled by the force of karma, which refers to the actions we perform with intention. The Buddha explained that our thoughts, words, and deeds all create seeds in our stream of consciousness, seeds that will eventually bear fruit, either in this life or in future lives. Death, then, is simply the closing of one chapter and the opening of another, with the plots and setting of the new chapter being shaped by the karma we have accumulated. The teachings encourage us to prepare for death not by fearing it, but by living a life aligned with ethical principles, cultivating a mind of clarity and compassion. When the Buddha was asked about the most important practice for preparing for death, he replied, "Mindfulness of death, developed and frequently practiced, brings great benefit and leads to liberation." Mindfulness of death involves reflecting regularly on the fragile and finite nature of our life. This practice does not create anxiety or morbidity. Rather, it instills a precious sense of urgency to live meaningfully, to heal relationships, and to make wholesome choices in the time that we have. Understanding death as a transition rather than an ending allows us to approach it with wisdom and equanimity. It reminds us to live fully in the present moment, to act with kindness and integrity, and to gently let go of the attachments that bind us to suffering. Part 2. Rebirth. The continuity of consciousness. In Buddhism, the idea of rebirth explains what happens after the transition of death. It is of the utmost importance to understand that Buddhist rebirth does not mean the transfer of a permanent, unchanging soul from one body to another. Instead, it refers to the seamless continuity of a stream of consciousness, a river of awareness that flows from one life to the next, its course and character continuously shaped by the currents of karma. The Buddha used a beautiful and simple analogy to illustrate this: one flame lighting another. Imagine an old candle whose wick is about to burn out. Before it extinguishes, its flame is used to light a new candle. The new flame is not the same as the old flame, yet it is not completely different either. It arises directly because of the first flame. This is the essence of rebirth, a continuity of process, not a transfer of substance. The Buddha was very clear in teaching that what is reborn is not a fixed entity. Consciousness, he taught, is not a self or a soul. It is a process, dependent on causes and conditions. At the moment of death, this stream of consciousness does not simply vanish. Instead, propelled by the force of our past karma, it takes on a new form, influenced by the actions, intentions, and mental states that have accumulated during a person's life. Rebirth occurs within the intricate framework of dependent origination, or paticca samuppada. This teaching explains that all phenomena arise due to specific conditions and cease when those conditions are no longer present. It is through this interconnected chain of causation that the cycle of samsara is maintained. The 12 links of dependent origination describe in detail how fundamental ignorance and craving lead to birth and death, creating the conditions for yet another rebirth. By understanding this process, one can begin to break the links in the chain and find freedom from the cycle. The realms of rebirth are often described as 6 distinct states of existence. It is helpful to think of these not as physical places in the universe, but as psychological states or landscapes of the mind, shaped and determined by one's karma. There, the heavenly realm, a state of immense pleasure and bliss; the human realm, the realm of the asuras, or demigods, characterized by jealousy and conflict; the animal realm, ruled by instinct and ignorance, the realm of the hungry ghosts, or pretas, a state of insatiable craving and want; and the hellish realms, states of extreme suffering born from intense anger and hatred. Virtuous actions and a mind filled with generosity and compassion may lead to a heavenly rebirth, while actions driven by cruelty and anger may result in a hellish state. The human realm is considered particularly precious and fortunate because it offers a rare balance of pleasure and pain, providing the ideal opportunity to practice the Dharma and work directly toward liberation. The Buddha emphasized that rebirth is not a matter of chance or divine whim. It is governed by the universal law of karma, which operates with an unfailing precision. He explained, beings are the owners of their actions, the heirs of their actions. Actions are the womb from which they are born, their relative, and their refuge. Whatever actions they perform, whether wholesome or unwholesome, they will be the heir to those actions. This means that the quality of one's rebirth is directly and inextricably linked to the ethical and mental qualities one cultivates in this life. While the idea of rebirth might seem complex, it ultimately underscores the profound importance of our actions in the here and now. The present moment is the fertile ground where we plant the seeds for our future. By living ethically, cultivating a mind of kindness and clarity, and letting go of harmful attachments, we can shape a favorable rebirth. More importantly, we can move closer to the ultimate goal, liberation from the entire cycle of suffering altogether. Part 3. Karma, the law that governs rebirth. Karma is a foundational concept in Buddhism, a principle so deeply woven into the teachings that it shapes the entire understanding of life, death, and rebirth. Often misunderstood in the West as a simplistic idea of cosmic payback or fate, karma is, in reality, a complex and profound truth that reflects the moral and spiritual law of cause and effect. The Buddha described it succinctly: by oneself is evil done, by oneself is one defiled. By oneself is good done, by oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. Karma, as taught by the Buddha, refers specifically to intentional actions, our thoughts, words, and deeds that arise from a conscious volition. These actions leave subtle imprints, or seeds, on our stream of consciousness, which will eventually bear fruit when the right conditions ripen. It is essential to understand that karma is not a rigid, predetermined fate. Instead, it is a dynamic and ever-changing process, shaped by our ongoing choices and intentions in every moment. In the Buddha's own words, "It is volition, monks, that I call karma, for having willed, one acts by body, speech, and mind. The distinction between wholesome and unwholesome actions is central to understanding karma. Wholesome actions are those rooted in the three beautiful roots of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. These actions lead to positive, happy outcomes for oneself and others. Unwholesome actions, on the other hand, are those driven by the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion. These inevitably result in suffering. The Buddha likened this to a form of spiritual agriculture. If you sow a seed of sweet fruit, you will reap sweet fruit. If you sow a seed of bitter fruit, you will reap bitter fruit. The role of intention, or satana, is the absolute heart of karma. Two individuals might perform the exact same act outwardly, but the karmic results could differ greatly depending on their underlying motivations. For example, giving money to others with a pure and selfless heart generates powerful, wholesome karma. Giving the same amount of money but for the selfish purpose of gaining recognition or a tax deduction greatly diminishes the positive impact. The Buddha highlighted this by saying, "What we think, we become. With our thoughts, we make the world." Karma not only influences this life, but also powerfully shapes the conditions of our future rebirths. It determines the realm into which one is born and the circumstances one will face. Yet, karma is not a fixed, deterministic force from which there is no escape. The Buddha emphasized that we have the power to change our karma through mindfulness, ethical living, and dedicated spiritual practice. He reassured his followers, even if one has done evil in the past, if one makes a firm resolution to purify the mind and live virtuously, one shines like the moon when it is freed from clouds. The law of karma reminds us of our profound responsibility for our own lives. It urges us to live with constant awareness, knowing that every thought, every word, and every deed has far-reaching consequences. It also inspires a deep sense of hope, for it teaches that through our own effort and wisdom, we have the power to transform our circumstances and create a better future. This understanding is deeply liberating, as it places the power for change firmly within our own hands. Ultimately, the purpose of reflecting on karma is not to become entangled in anxious thoughts of reward or punishment, but to awaken a deeper understanding of the interconnected nature of life. Karma teaches us that our actions ripple outward, influencing not only our own future, but also the lives of everyone around us. By understanding and practicing these principles of cause and effect, we align ourselves with the natural laws of the universe. We cultivate the seeds of wisdom and compassion, paving the way for a life of peace and a future of liberation. But how do we apply this grand cosmic map to our daily lives? How do we actively work with karma, navigate the process of rebirth, and live in a way that truly prepares us for a peaceful death. The Buddha's path offers practical tools and profound insights to do just that. And it is these practical applications that we will explore next. We have now explored the great cosmic map laid out by the Buddha, a view of death as a natural transition, rebirth as a seamless continuity of consciousness, and karma as the universal law that guides this intricate flow. Understanding this map is the essential first step. But how do we navigate this vast and often challenging journey wisely? How do we actively purify our karma and steer our stream of consciousness not just toward a more favorable future, but toward liberation itself? The Buddha didn't just provide a map. He provided a clear and practical path. And it is this path to ultimate freedom that we will now explore together. Part 4. Liberation from the cycle of rebirth. At the very heart of the Buddha's teachings lies a profound and beautiful aspiration: liberation. This is the freedom from the endless, often exhausting cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. A cycle known as samsara. This cycle, driven by the powerful undercurrents of ignorance and craving, is fundamentally marked by suffering, or dukkha. The Buddha's own awakening was not a private miracle, but a discovery that revealed a clear and accessible path to transcend this endless cycle, offering a vision of ultimate freedom, unshakable peace, and profound truth. Nirvana, the ultimate goal in Buddhism, is often misunderstood as a heavenly place or a blissful state of existence. But it is something far more subtle and profound. It is the complete cessation of suffering and the final extinguishing of the three fires that fuel the engine of samsara: greed, craving, hatred, aversion, and delusion, ignorance. The Buddha described it as the unconditioned and the deathless, a state of being where the fever of existence has cooled, and the mind is finally at rest. He said, "There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, uncompounded. If there were not this unborn, unbecome, unmade, uncompounded, there could not be the escape from what is born, become, made, and compounded." The path to this ultimate liberation is the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical and holistic guide that encompasses ethical conduct, mental discipline, and transformative wisdom. It is through the dedicated cultivation of this path that one gradually weakens the forces of karma and breaks free from the gravitational pull of the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha emphasized the singular, transformative power of this path, saying, "Just as the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so too does my teaching have one taste, the taste of liberation." Ethical conduct, or sila, forms the very foundation of the path. By choosing to live with integrity, avoiding harm, speaking truthfully, and acting with kindness and generosity, we create the necessary conditions for inner peace and mental clarity. This is the act of preparing the soil of our mind. The Buddha often reminded his disciples, "Happiness follows the virtuous like a shadow that never departs." When our actions are pure, our minds are free from the heavy burdens of guilt and remorse. Mental discipline, or samadhi, is cultivated through the practices of mindfulness and concentration. This is the act of calming the waters. Through meditation, we learn to calm the restless mind, to sharpen our awareness, and to uncover the deep, experiential truths of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. The Buddha encouraged his followers to persist in their practice, saying, "Meditate, monks, do not delay, lest you later regret it." Wisdom, or panna, is the crown jewel of the path. It arises from direct, penetrating insight into the nature of reality. This is the clear seeing that the still water allows. This wisdom is what finally dispels ignorance, the root cause of samsara. It reveals the profound interconnectedness of all things and the ultimate emptiness of any inherent, separate existence. The Buddha described this awakening as finally seeing the world as it really is, free from the distorting filters of our own delusion. The journey to liberation is not always an easy one. It requires dedication, sincere effort, and a deep willingness to let go of our most cherished attachments and views. But the Buddha repeatedly assured his followers that liberation is possible for anyone who walks the path with sincerity and diligence. He said, "The awakened one is the one who perseveres. Even a drop of water, falling persistently, can wear away the hardest rock." The ancient texts also offer us numerous examples of individuals who attained this liberation, serving as both inspiration and guidance. In the Pali Canon, the stories of the Arahants, the fully enlightened ones, illustrate the profound transformation that occurs when one breaks free from samsara. These were not mythical figures, but ordinary men and women who, through their own efforts, untangled the knots of their own suffering. Their stories remind us that this ultimate goal is attainable, not just for monks or scholars in ancient times, but for any one of us who earnestly applies the teachings in our own lives. Liberation from samsara is not about escaping life, but about fully understanding and embracing it. It is the ultimate freedom, where one no longer clings to illusions or suffers the consequences of ignorance. Part 5. Preparing for Death. Buddhist Practices. In the Buddhist teachings, death is not seen as an isolated, terrifying event that happens to us at the end of our lives. Rather, it is viewed as a culmination of how one has lived. The Buddha often emphasized the profound importance of living mindfully and ethically, for it is these very qualities that prepare the mind to face its final transition with clarity, courage, and peace. To approach death skillfully, one must cultivate practices that align with the teachings, ensuring a transition marked by wisdom and serenity. One of the foundational practices is simply mindful living, which naturally leads to a mindful death. The Buddha once said, "If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows them like a never-departing shadow." Mindful living means being fully present in each moment, acutely aware of one's thoughts, words, and deeds. This constant, gentle awareness helps us to recognize impermanence in every moment, fostering a deep sense of acceptance. This, in turn, allows us to gently loosen our grip on our attachments and approach death with a state of profound equanimity. Meditation plays a crucial and direct role in preparing for death. Among the many meditation practices in Buddhism, Maranasarti, mindfulness of death, is particularly significant. This practice involves reflecting on the inevitability and unpredictability of our own death. This is not done to create fear or morbidity, but to deepen one's appreciation for the preciousness of this life and to cultivate a healthy detachment from the transient things of the world. The Buddha advised his disciples, just as all the great rivers flow inevitably to the ocean, so too does life flow inevitably toward death. Therefore, be diligent. By meditating on death, one becomes more attuned to the impermanence of all things, which naturally reduces the fear and anxiety that often accompany the thought of dying. It fosters an understanding that death is a natural part of existence, no different from the changing of the seasons or the rising and setting of the sun. Another key practice is the cultivation of merit. In the Buddhist tradition, merit refers to the positive, wholesome spiritual energy generated through virtuous actions such as generosity, ethical conduct, and meditation. By accumulating merit throughout our lives, we create favorable conditions for a peaceful death and a positive rebirth. The Buddha often encouraged acts of generosity, saying, "If people knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given." Merit can also be dedicated to others, a beautiful practice known as patidana. By mentally transferring the merit of our good deeds to our loved ones, our ancestors, or even to all sentient beings, one extends compassion beyond oneself, fostering a sense of boundless interconnectedness and reducing selfish clinging. Compassion is another essential quality to develop as one prepares for death. By actively practicing metta, or loving kindness, and karuna, or compassion, individuals soften their hearts and reduce the grip of fear and anger. The Buddha emphasized the transformative power of compassion, stating the eternal law: hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. A compassionate heart, free from resentment, regret, or ill will, is a heart that can let go of this life gracefully and peacefully at the moment of death. For those accompanying someone who is nearing the end of their life, providing an environment of peace and support is an act of great compassion. Chanting Buddhist scriptures, reciting mantras, or simply offering gentle words of comfort and reassurance can help the dying person focus their mind on wholesome and peaceful thoughts. The Buddha advised that the final moments of life are crucial, for the mental state at the time of death strongly influences the nature of the subsequent rebirth. Another valuable practice is reflecting on the qualities of the three jewels: the Buddha, the enlightened teacher; the Dharma, his teachings; and the Sangha, the spiritual community. This reflection instills confidence and inspires faith, helping the mind to remain focused and uplifted. In preparing for death, the ultimate aim is not merely a favorable rebirth, but liberation from the entire cycle of samsara. The practices of mindfulness, meditation, merit cultivation, and ethical living all work together in harmony to weaken the deep-seated forces of craving and ignorance. Paving the way for awakening, the Buddha reminded his disciples, Be a lamp unto yourselves. Be your own refuge. Seek no other refuge. These powerful words encourage self-reliance and inspire individuals to take full responsibility for their own spiritual journey. Death, in the Buddhist view, is not something to be feared or avoided, but a profound and final opportunity for spiritual growth. Part 6. Conclusion. The Buddhist perspective on death is neither grim nor escapist. It is a vision rooted in a clear and compassionate understanding of reality, offering profound insights into life's inherent impermanence and our deep interconnectedness. Through the lens of the Buddha's teachings, death is understood not as an end, but as a natural transformation, a doorway leading to the next stage in the great cycle of existence. Propelled by the gentle, unfailing law of our own actions. Central to this understanding is the law of karma, which highlights the profound responsibility we have for shaping our own lives and future experiences. The Buddha's words remind us, what we are today comes from our faults of yesterday, and our present faults build our life of tomorrow. This teaching is not a threat, but an empowerment. It encourages us to live ethically, mindfully, and with a compassionate heart, knowing that our every action matters. The preparation for a peaceful death, therefore, begins in this very moment of life, by embracing mindfulness, cultivating merit, and practicing meditation. We lay the foundation for a peaceful transition. These practices, deeply rooted in the teachings of the Buddha, serve as our tools for overcoming fear and attachment, allowing us to face life's greatest uncertainty with wisdom, courage, and grace. Ultimately, the Buddhist teachings on death aim to inspire our complete liberation. While the cycle of samsara continues for most, the Noble Eightfold Path offers a clear way out, the attainment of nirvana, the cessation of birth, death, and rebirth, is the beautiful culmination of the spiritual journey. It is the realization of a state beyond all suffering, where the mind is finally free and the heart rests in the unconditioned, unshakable peace of the truth. The Buddha left us with a timeless and urgent reminder in his final words: all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. These words encapsulate the very essence of the Buddhist approach to both death and life, a powerful call to awaken, to live with profound awareness, and to seek the highest freedom for the benefit of all beings. In understanding death, we find not despair, but the wisdom to live our lives to the fullest and the hope of ultimate liberation. This journey into the heart of the Buddhist view of death and rebirth is a profound one. It asks us to look at life's biggest questions with courage and an open mind. The teachings are not meant to be a doctrine to be believed, but a map to be explored through our own lived experience. The path is one of transforming fear into wisdom, and of finding peace in the midst of life's constant flow. These teachings are a profound gift. To honor your own reflection on them, I invite you to share in the comments below one practice or insight from this video that you will carry with you to live more mindfully and with greater peace. Your intention is a light that illuminates the path for our entire community. If this deep exploration has offered you a sense of clarity or comfort, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Let us continue to walk this path of wisdom together, transforming our understanding of both life and death. Thank you for your presence and your deep attention today. May you be well, and may you walk with peace.